Today we're going to learn to do a functional and decorative stitch called the pick stitch. Before we jump in to our hand stitching little project here, let's go over some of my favorite hand stitching supplies. So, no, this is my favorite. We're going to save that till last. Needles first. So, honestly, my favorite kind of needles, there's a bunch of different kinds of needles, but sharps. Sharps are a type of needle, but they come in different sizes. These ones that you're looking at here are 3. They're a little bit on the big side. I'd probably go with a 2 or even a 1. My fingers are little, my hands are little, and so I prefer a smaller needle for working purposes, but darners, larger needles, they're intended to be able to like pick up a lot of fabric, a lot of threads, line up a lot of stitches on them. However, depending on the way that you sew or the way that your little hands work, maybe you like a smaller needle for a smaller hand, and I do. These sharps are exactly what they sound like. They're thin, sharp needles, and they're good for just about everything. So universally, I love them. And this brand, Richard Hemming & Sons, is, God, I'm sure they've been making them for roughly 1,000 years. So they're great. I've also got this little variety pack here, again, because sometimes I just like to have a little assortment so that I can choose in the moment. Do I want something like a longer needle for a bunch of running stitches, or do I want something smaller that's going to be more maneuverable in tight spaces? And in this case, I'm only picking up 1 stitch at a time. So I'm going to want that shorter needle because I like the dexterity. I like the agility. I like it. That's how I feel. That's how it feels right in my hand for this stitch. So we've got our needles. Next, we've got our thread. I don't know, again, if anybody else makes this. These are the guys. NBT Furrier waxed skein. And I mean, look at the text. I mean, this makes me feel legitimate. Like, when I know how to use this, I'm like, today of all days, I'm not an imposter, because we all get imposter syndrome, especially as a tailor. Today, I don't feel like an imposter. I just feel like I love this stuff. It is pre-cut, exactly the right length, strands of thread that have been pre-waxed to make them strong. They don't tangle. They're smooth. They're just a dream. When you unspool thread off of a tight spool, it wants to stay in the position that it has been for God knows how long, which is a tight, round section. That's why you get so many knots in your thread. These have been, let's say, relaxed. They've been relaxed out to this long position where they're not bound, and then waxed and twisted so that they have that smooth, strong, shiny, beautiful finish. So I adore this. I have it in every color that they sell it in. And again, I have no idea who else makes this. This is the pack. Look for this one, buy it. They're the only ones. Makes it simple. Okay. Number 3, can't live without, is this little beauty. I'm gonna model it for you. I wear it on this finger. Had to do it. I wear it on this finger, and I like that it's open-ended. I don't like a totally closed thimble. For me, I want to be able to adjust the fit. Sometimes I want it to be tighter. Sometimes I want it to be looser and be able to slide it a little bit further down my finger if I need more leverage. I like the open-ended because it gives me that flexibility. And I love this little, let me point to it with the scissors. I love this little lip here. That little bad boy, that is so helpful when I'm trying to scoot the needle through a bunch of layers of fabric and it's giving me a lot of trouble. That is where you cut up the ends of your fingers, where you get all of those little pinpricks on the tips of your fingers from trying to jam it through and it doesn't want to go. This little guy also has these cute little dimples in it. And again, that is intended for the butt. of the needle, or the eye of the needle really, for you to be able to get a good grip and push it through no matter how many layers of fabric you're working with. So this, and I wear it on my middle finger here like this, but some people wear them on their pointers, some people wear them on, it's really a matter of preference. Where do you find you have the most leverage, and where does it feel the most comfortable for you? So the more hand sewing you do, the more comfortable you're gonna feel with the different equipment, what your preferences are, the difference between the threads, how they tangle, how they move, how strong they are. I think a lot of people are hesitant about hand sewing because, oh, well, I tried it once and it didn't look right. Again, nothing about this ever happens overnight. You have to practice. You have to keep trying. It just does get better over time, but time takes time. And that is the essence of hand sewing. This should be your secret weapon. This should be the thing that you can fall back on to make anything perfect. Because, I don't know, 40% of things don't even fit under the machine. What are you gonna do then? You want to understand the mechanics of the clothing itself, and the way to do that is to get in deep. Hand sewing is the secret weapon in your arsenal. It doesn't really come down to the equipment. Use whatever you got. I mean, this stuff I love matters to me, especially with how much I do it, but it's not about the equipment. It's about you. Practice, and you will love it. You will love it. Okay, let's get stitching. To start the stitch off, we're gonna use, let's talk about thread. The thread is really important. So we are using skein, which is pre-cut, pre-waxed thread, which gives it a nice heavy and strong feel, but it's not too thick. You can also use buttonhole thread, silk twist, bunch of different options, but again, waxed skein is gonna be my favorite. I've got it looped through, but not tied together. We only want one single thread in the actual stitch. We'll get to that in a moment, but to keep this thread secure, I'm gonna take my long end and just tie a really simple knot. Nice and easy. Okay, we've got our knot there. Now we are ready to dive in. To show you this stitch, I'm gonna use a sample of a welt pocket. This is actually one of my favorite applications of this stitch. So imagine that we're working with a suit jacket. I've just got this sample welt that I created. We are gonna start from the wrong side of the fabric, and we're gonna put our needle just coming up at that corner. Now, it's totally up to you aesthetic-wise what distance you want to go and what distance between stitches. So for me, I am going to come back down almost directly where the stitch came up, and then I'm shooting for about 1/4 inch away. That is going to be my uniform goal as I'm running this stitch along the top edge. So what does this stitch do? The functionality of the stitch is that it's a prettier top stitch, let's call it. So instead of putting, say, a machine stitch in, I am taking the time and maybe a contrast color and using this opportunity to secure the welt pocket in place with this really delicate, beautiful stitch. Now, I am getting it pretty close as well. So much like a top stitch, I am aiming for as little as 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch just above my actual seam line of the pocket here. And again, I'm coming back down almost directly on top of, but next to where my thread came out, and shooting along the bottom up about 1/4 of an inch away. For me, I've always stitched left to right. I find that the easiest. So, right to left. Read left to right, stitch right to left. So I started at the right, and I'm just moving along that top and trying to keep those little, let's call them bites, the little bite of thread as small as possible. That's kind of why it's fun to use a contrast color, because it's subtle. That's one of my favorite things about tailoring as a detail. Any details in tailoring is they're subtle, but they're there. if you know that they're there, it really almost doesn't even matter if other people can see them, honestly, in my opinion. I like that about it. I like that, depending on the color chosen, you might not even be able to see it. You can also see that even though I'm trying, the distance isn't exact. I'm trying to make it a 1/4 inch. My stitches aren't exactly exact. That is okay. I'm not going to kill myself over that. You can mark out with a pen or something 1/4 inch all the way along, or if you go too far. You see that? I did go too far on that one. And the great thing is our thread is not tied off on our needle. So honestly, I'm just going to use my needle, unthread it real quick, and pull it back out. So there's a pretty easy rewind on this, which I like as well. But it's definitely meditative in nature. It is certainly supposed to be that way. Don't rush it. Keep both a close eye on it, as in watching it closely as you're pulling your thread back up through, but also keep a wide eye on it, meaning look back and see, does that line of stitching that I've been making look good from a little bit of a distance? Physically lean away. Look up close, look far away, and keep a balanced eye on what you're doing here. Beautiful, beautiful. So what do we do when we get to the end? I'm not going to go all the way through. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to run my stitch and my needle to the back and simply tie this off. So I'm going to pick up a few threads, not going all the way to the front. Just like that. And then slide my needle through and secure that knot. I'm going to do that one more time. Pick up a couple of threads, not going all the way through, and slide my needle through. And then honestly, because this is on the inside of the jacket, I'll probably hide the tail under a seam allowance if I can, and then I'm just going to clip it down there. So that will be hidden. And then from the outside, all we can see are these beautiful little stitches. How fun is that?